Hey folks, I'm glad you're here at Shoemakers Academy. It is DIY time, and today we're going to do quilted sneaker, Strobel stitching, and outsole bonding. If you don't have your kit, then let me show you where to find it. Cruise on over to the website, shoemakersacademy.com. Books, kits, and tools right here in the middle. Click on that. You're going to get here to DIY shoemaking kits. And what we're working with today is the Quilter sneaker kit for DIY beginners. Click on that. And that's what's in the kit here. But basically, um, you'll be able to pick your size, pick the outsole color, and there's some upgrades I'm going to tell you about a little bit later. It's actually a mini toolkit or eyelet setter. But again, just click and you can add those to your kit. But more importantly, I want to show you this CDIY instructions down here. Click on that, and that'll take you to a page that has all of these different instructional videos and tidbits. And actually, this video that you're about to watch lives on this page too. So if you're here on YouTube and you haven't got your kit, this is where you're going to find it. Okay, so you know what we're going to do is I am going to get this out of the way, and I'm going to get myself out of the way, and so I can show you how to do this operation. Hey folks, okay, we are going to work on the other part of our holiday shoe. But what I want to show you today is the other method of assembling the shoe. So for this first one, we sewed the upper directly to the rubber outsole, right? I showed you in the channel stitching video, and then here the lasting board and the footbed are just put in on top. And that's how we made that shoe. Now, this other shoe, I mean, we've done a few things differently. Instead of doing the rolled over edge, we went ahead and did a binding on this one. So just so you can see the difference. Now, how we're going to finish this shoe is we are going to sew this to the Strobel board and then glue it onto the outsole. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So first thing, we need to, this is your lasting board. You're going to go ahead and you're going to trace the pattern, and then you're going to punch the holes. Now, I like to use, I have this felt mat. It's actually it's not actually a punching mat, but because it's so soft and thick, it works great. You can punch your holes using, there's a couple ways. If you have the toolkit, then you can use the pricking iron that comes with a single or a double. The double obviously speeds things up. Or you can just use your sewing awl to punch right through the lasting board. As long as you have a deep enough, a soft enough punching mat, you can just punch right through. And I'll show you here. I like to punch the holes through before I cut the whole thing out. That way, you can't damage the edge or whatever. Okay, so that's what that, that's what this looks like when you're done. You've got it all punched. So this one is ready to go. Okay. And you want to have your holes pretty open to make your sewing a little easier. Okay. So that's my only advice there. Okay. So now let's get the upper ready to attach to the lasting board. Now, when we did this shoe, we attached the quarters, right? This part to the outsole first, and then we attach the tongue. But for this method, where we're going to attach it to the Strobel board, I found that it works a little easier to go ahead and connect these two pieces together first, and then we'll sew it to the lasting board. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so the next step is to sew the quarter and the tongue together. Now, there's a lot of layers here. When you do the rollover, there's less layers, but with this binding edge, there's a lot of material there. And what we want to try to do is get behind the binding and just overlap a little bit. We don't want the two binding layers on top of each other. That's just going to make a big bump in the shoe. So actually what we're going to do is we're just going to get the binding edges against each other. Now, hand sewing through all this can be a little bit difficult, depending on what kind of strength you have or your setup. I mean, if you have an industrial machine that can go through that, great. If not, then I'm going to show you a technique that you can use because you've got everything you need to do this. We've got the sewing awl, and we've got the wax thread. So we're just going to do kind of the channel stitching method, and I'll show you that this makes it a lot easier to do if you don't quite have the hand strength to get through all these layers. So I've got my felt pad, and I've got my pieces lined up, and this is below the level of the outsole, right? So you can just start here. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be so clean up here, down here. Okay, so we're going to start, and we're going to push through. And now I'm just going to pull my bobbin thread through the back here. All right. Now I'm going to come out, and now I'm going to make my first stitch. First, get everything lined up here, right? Pull that tight so that everything's in line. Okay. Make sure that we're in line here where the tongue is going to line up. Okay. And we'll go ahead and we'll make our first stitch, and we're going to just push through all these layers. And you can just put your palm on there and push it through. Okay. Now, just like we do in the channel stitch, you make the loop, and we're going to put our bobbin through, and then we're going to withdraw, and then we're going to snug it up tight. Okay. Yeah, see, this is really a lot easier way to go about doing this. And we can just get our tongue in the right place here and go through. Okay. All right. We're going to back up to get our loop. And this is exactly the technique we're going to use when we go to secure the upper to the outsole. So this is exactly the kind of same way to use the tool, same way to make your inside bobbin thread and your top stitch threads. Exactly the same technique. Sorry, we're going to pull this through, get it out of the needle. So now we've brought that thread, we brought the top thread inside, right? And now we're going to grab this bobbin thread that we let outside, and we're going to pull that in, and now we're going to knot them together right here in the middle. See what we got there? So now we've got both threads here, and we're just going to knot them together. So again, this is just one way to do it. There's lots of different ways to do that, but get these pulled together nice and tight. Okay, there we go. I just like to hide them in the middle there. Again, you can do what you like. If your machine can go through all these layers, then great. If not, that's one way to do it. Okay, so this way there's no knot inside next to your foot, and we can just cut this back. All right, so there we got a good snug connection there, and now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna sew the next one on. Okay. So that's what that looks like. And then we're going to put that right down on the lasting board, just like that. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, this is what it looks like when you've got it all stitched together. And then we're going to go ahead and make sure you get this piece going the right direction, right? You want to make sure you have the right foot or the left foot. I know that this happens to be the left foot, so that's that. And this is what we're going to do next, is we are going to Strobel stitch these pieces together. And then we're going to go ahead and attach it to the outsole. Okay, so let's get started with that. Now, this operation you can do with an awl if you want to, but I find this one goes much faster with just a regular needle. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to go ahead and I'm just going to give ourselves enough thread here to go halfway around, and then we're going to go from heel to toe, and then we'll swoop around and we'll go from heel to toe on the other side. So about twice around is enough. Okay. It's important to get yourself straight. So what we're going to do is go ahead and put one stitch right in the middle of the binding here. Okay. 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 That's the center. And I'm just gonna, oops, not get tangled up here. I'm just gonna go around. Okay. Okay. Now, we want to make sure that we get into the center hole. Okay. It's really important that you get this in the center, because if you're off center at this point, then we're gonna be in a world of hurt. Making all this work. Okay, so now we're in the middle here, and we want to be careful to leave. We don't want this to be too tight. We really want the board sitting inside. If it's sitting on top like this, then it's too small. It's really, we want to be on the perimeter of the board. Okay, so now I'm gonna just work. Now that we've got that first one in, I'm gonna just work our way down here. Keep working our way down here to make sure that we get us in the center here. And I'm gonna do ourselves a favor, and I'm going to push a T-pin through here to hold it. Now, if you had a safety pin, that'd be better, but I'm going to actually just take this T-pin and turn it over. So now I've got this thing pegged, and now we can start working our way, and we know that we're staying straight. Okay. Now, there's lots of ways to go about doing this, but I like to go from the board into the upper. Okay. And just as long as you stay roughly in line, because then we know we're in good shape here, because now this is where we want to be careful not to pull too tight. Okay. Okay. Now, right here, not too tight, like right like that. That's as tight as you want to get. Okay. And we're just going to keep working our way around. Okay. Okay. And we're just going to, again, we don't want this tight. We want to keep this pretty loose. You know, like that is just the right amount of tension. Okay. Okay, we've got about halfway, and I'm just going to leave that thread there. And now we're going to go back and we're going to start and work our way. Now, you know, this might look a little bit messy. We'll go back and clean up the tension a little bit. And but again, this is all going to be underneath the edge of the outsole. So basically the trick is just to get nice even tension and see where the upper sits outside of the lasting board. That's exactly the effect we're going for, so that we have enough space when we get inside the shoe. Okay, let's keep going. We'll go back. We're going to go back and we're going to start at this heel and go this way. Okay, so now we've got all the stitches around, and you can see that it's relatively loose, and that is exactly the idea. And I'm going to just leave these tails loose, but this is exactly what we're looking for. Now, this toe looks a little flat, and that's because it has the reinforcing in it. We're going to heat that up. Okay, folks, this is what your upper is going to look like once you've got it all sewn together. And basically, you do your best to get the back seam straight, and then let's put this down into the outsole and see how everything fits. Now, this is a great time to take your hammer and to tap it. Use your hammer handle to tap it down into the outsole, right? And lift up the toe tip a little bit. And this looks like it fits pretty nice. So what we're going to do now, next, is we're going to press the upper in place, and we're going to draw a glue line, right? So that we can apply glue and cement this whole thing together. All right. Okay, we've got the upper sitting into the outsole. And what we're going to do now is we're going to press the upper down into the outsole, and we're going to grab a marking pen, and this is our heat erasable one, and we're going to mark the cement line, because we're going to glue onto the there we go. We're going to glue this upper onto the outsole. So let's get a nice glue line marked. We're going to go all the way around. Go all the way around. And this, we want to make sure that we press it right into the outsole so that we can get this marked. And we're not, when we go to apply the cement, that we don't get above the line. Even if we do get above the line, we can clean it up, but it's best to make it nice and neat. And also this line will help show us that we're all the way down and straight. So if we get this marked correctly, it'll help us get the outsole on exactly straight. All right, we are getting ready to finish gluing up the shoe. We sewed the Strobel on, and we test fit to the outsole. Now what we're going to do is we're going to prepare the upper and the outsole for bonding. So, okay, first of all, what do I have here? I have barge all-purpose cement. You can just get this one tube. This tube is, you could do a couple pairs out of this pretty easily. I happen to have some barge all-purpose thinner, and I'm going to use that, or you could use acetone, or if you don't have any of those stinky chemicals, just take your outsole and wash it in hot soapy water, and that just makes sure that the surface is prepared. You could, this outsole that we provide has already had the surface buffed, but just if it's got dust on it or anything, it's worth it to give it a wash. Again, I'm going to give it a quick wipe down with this cement thinner, And this is just a good way to prepare the surface for bonding. But if you don't have that, hot soapy water works just as well. Okay, so what do I have? I have some thinner. I have some glue. I have a little thing I'm going to put glue on. I have a little towel for the cement. I like to use a disposable brush because this cement, once it kicks off, it is really hard to get out of a brush. So you know, you can get these on Amazon. They're pretty inexpensive. Okay, so what we're going to do now, here's the thing about contact cement. What you're going to do is you're going to paint cement onto the outsole and onto the upper, and then you're going to take 5, have a cup of coffee, relax, and let the cement dry a little bit. And if you have a heat gun, you could turn a heat gun on, but basically the whole goal of this is to get the cement to be tacky. If the cement is wet, it's not going to stick. Okay, actually, the other tool, I like to have a hammer handle to help press in, but you know, that's another thing we're going to use. Okay, so let's get started. Let's go ahead and do a little surface prep. And surface prep, really, when you're bonding, is one of the most important things, because if there's a little bit of dust or dirt or anything on your outsole unit, or mold release from when it was manufactured, then you're going to have a hard time getting a bond. Make sure you obviously do this with some ventilation. We got to get some more on here. Make sure you have good ventilation when you do this, so because this is pretty rotten stuff, but basically it's really important. And so what I'm spending most of my time on is this vertical surface. This is we call this the bonding margin, right? So any of this flat surface, that is really where it's important to get our bond. Now, we are going to sew this on afterwards, but the better bond you have, more importantly. Now, our upper, because it's textile, we don't have to do any surface prep. If you were gluing leather, then you'd want to do a little sanding on your leather. But again, if you do any kind of sanding or buffing, you want to make sure that you stop and clean all of that dust off before you do any bonding operation. Okay, so we've got that squared away. We'll set this stinky stuff aside. And do you have to wear gloves? I mean, you should, if you're handling any acetone or thinner like that. For this cement, you know, this stuff doesn't really, it's not particularly messy. Do you have to have gloves? You know, I get kind of messy sometimes, so I like to have gloves. So here's what we're going to do. I'm just going to take some glue and just put it right into the outsole here. And then we'll go to work with the brush and spread it around. So I'm really, you know, you want to get it into the bonding margin. That's the most important part here, because this is where our upper is really going to do the sticking. And I didn't put nearly enough glue on there, so let's go ahead and just go to town on that. Get that in there. It's really difficult to have too much of this cement, because we're just going to spread it all around, and we want to make sure we get a really good coating on all these bonding surfaces. And if you get some down in the bottom there, it really doesn't matter. So this glue, again, this stuff's kind of stinky. There is a water-based alternative made by this company, Barge, so that works pretty well too. Okay, so just it's important to really get the bonding margin. Get all this glued up. Okay. All right. And get, you know, if you go off, you know, it's okay to go off the top of the edge here, because we're just painting from the inside. So make sure, and if you get some on the top there, just come back and we'll use I have a little crepe rubber, and we'll use that to clean up a little bit in the end. Okay, and again, this glue, before it kicks off, it's easy to. Oh, my brush is losing some bristles, so that's not too fun. Okay, all right, so that pretty well we've got glue. Now I'm going to put a little glue in this middle egg crate here in the forefoot, and just get that on there, because we do want the lasting board to stick onto that, and we're gonna completely cover the lasting board with glue also. So, okay, all right. Now I'm trying to work pretty quickly so that this isn't so boring for you, but really, there's no hurry, because this glue, we're gonna literally let it sit and get tacky. So, okay, so that's pretty well glued up. That's good. Okay, now let's get on to the upper here. Now, if you were careful, you would have a piece of paper or something on your work table rather than just put it here, but I guess I'm not that careful. So I like to put a little dab here on a tray and then do the bonding surface, and then we'll go back and get some onto the lasting board. And just, get your brush loaded and work your way up to the line. Okay. Because a little bit of under gluing is okay, because we've got plenty of glue on the outsole, but if you get above too much, then it's going to show. It's not going to look that nice on your finished project. But again, you're saying, hey, wait, this takes a lot of time. Why don't I just sew it to the outsole and be done with it? But this is what is going to make your shoe last longer and be sturdier and be, a little longer wearing project. If you want this to be a functional shoe, say for next Christmas or a few Christmases beyond, then not that there's anything wrong with sewing it directly to the outsole, but gluing it up and putting it on a lasting board, that really is what's going to make you a longer lasting shoe. And yeah, this little tube of cement, I think they're like $9 each, and I have cans of glue around, but I do like the little tube, and the reason why is if you're not gluing up so many shoes, that the big cans of cement, they just get a little bit old and they don't stick as well. So a fresh tube of glue, there's no shame in that, to just buy a new tube whenever you sit down. Again, if you're doing more shoes and more projects with it, then a big can is very practical, but I don't mind just using the tube. Okay, so now in the shoe factory, they have a big overhead fan that just takes away all the vapors. So again, when you're working at home, really be careful to have a fan on and do this in a ventilated space. If I wasn't running the camera, I'd have a big fan blowing, but you guys really don't want to listen to my fan blowing. So, okay, so we've gone all the way around, and we've got all the bonding margin done. Now we want to make sure to get this lasting board, so we're gonna go ahead and squeeze a bunch of glue onto the lasting board, and this is about. I've already done a pair of shoes with this, and not including that. That one didn't get glue. So that tube of glue will last you probably 2 pairs of shoes. But just get a nice coating on here and get into all the Strobel threads there. Get it on there, make sure you get a lot. It's this edge, this corner is pretty important that you get a nice layer of glue on there, because that's really where the edge of the outsole, right, it's all going to be sticking right on that area. So go ahead and make sure you get a decent amount of glue in there, okay? Yeah, just be careful not to have any dry spots on the lasting board. Again, particularly on this threaded part. You really want to make sure that you get glue all in there, because we want to have a really good bond on the corner, and because that's what's gonna, I mean, we're going through this extra effort to make a sturdier, stronger shoe. So let's go ahead and get that on there. Okay, fantastic. Now I'm gonna set this down. I'm just gonna set it there, and we're gonna take a break. Because what we want to do, and actually I'll speed things up. I'll grab the heat gun, but you would just take a break, set these other pieces. If you have more thinner, clean that stuff up, great. But this is a great time to, we're going to get our heat gun out. And okay, so you see I just touched my finger on it, right? And you get some glue strings, okay? That means it's too wet, okay? We really don't want there to be any strings, so we'll go ahead and we'll touch here, and there's some little strings here, so we don't want strings. Like that sidewall there is pretty good now. Make sure everything is all coated in there. Okay, good. Got some brush fibers in there, but I guess that's okay, as long as they're not sticking out. Okay, so the sole is actually almost ready, but this upper, you can see there's still wet glue there. So we want to hang on, and we don't want to fit this together just yet. We're going to give it some more time. But here, instead of giving it more time, we're going to give it some heat. So let's do that. I'm using a heat gun, but if you have a blow dryer will work just as well. Now you can get a little close to the lasting board with the heat gun, but really be careful to not get too close to your upper, or we don't want to melt the threads. Okay, so let's see. This feels pretty good. The middle of the lasting board still is a little bit. We're just going to give that a second we're going to give that a second. Okay, it's been a few minutes, and I've taken my gloves off, and that's because they had a little bit of glue on them, and now at this point the glue is dry, right? It's you can feel it. It's a little bit tacky, but there's no strings, and that's perfect, because now we're going to land the upper onto the outsole. Now at this point, you see the marking line is there. Don't worry, we're going to hit it with a heat gun. We're going to erase that. But at this point, we want to be really careful, because once these glued surfaces touch each other, they don't like to move, right? So we want to be careful to land it as straight as possible. And now if you had a shoe last and a lasting post, that would make this a lot easier, because you can sort of open everything up and land it. But what we're going to do is I'm just going to spread this a little bit, and I'm going to land the heel first and make sure I'm on the center, right? And and then we're going to move forward, and we're going to land each piece, get the toe down, get the sidewalls in. Okay, so if you end up with a little curled piece like that, that's okay. Just peel it back and then push it down. Now we're going to work from the inside of the shoe, starting in the heel, and we're going to just press. Work with your fingertips to get it pushed together, okay? And just keep working around, okay? When you get to the tip, put your fingertips there and just put your palm in there, and just, give yourself a 5 count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then keep moving. Keep moving. And just keep working your way around. Now, at this point, we've gone around once. I like to get my hammer handle and just get into the corner and just push. And any spot that we weren't all the way down here, we can get all the way down. Okay. Now it's really important here up at the toe to get this pushed up as nice as clean as we can. And we can even take our hammer handle and sort of try to burnish it for those parts that we can't reach, just to make sure that we get this all down on the inside, okay? All right? Just use that, give a nice push. And, you know, it's okay if you have a little gap like that. It's okay. Because we're going to end up, we're going to end up sewing it all in the end. But, either push down on the table or push into your palm and just keep working it for a little bit. Now, if you see a little over glue, now is not a bad time to grab an eraser and just take a couple of passes at it to get any extra glue out of the way. We were pretty clean about this. Okay, so there's a little bit of glue on this front edge here. We're just going to go ahead and wipe that down. Now, if you have a blow dryer or a heat gun, you can put it to work a little bit right now. And you can, see that little gap is opening? That's okay. We're going to just take our heat gun and go over it for just a few seconds. And then we're going to come back and push it together. And it's okay if there's a little bit of a gap, because we're going to come back and sew this all together. But we're going to do that tomorrow, because you want to let the glue set up before you do any sewing. Yeah, that's good. And you see it's starting to open a little bit in the heel there. That's okay. Just come back and squeeze it together. A little heat and a little pressure. And again, if there's a little gap opens up somewhere along the edge, don't worry about it, because we are going to come back and sew it all. So that's what makes this shoe, when you do this method, is what makes it so nice and a little bit stronger, is because you've glued it and you've sewn it together. And that's what's going to make, that's what's going to make this shoe nice and sturdy. And not that the other way is bad, but this way is even better. Okay, folks, we will come back and we will show you some more channel stitching. Okay, folks, so it's been a while. We've let the glue cure overnight for this holiday shoe. And if you remember, this is one that we sewed the Strobel. We sewed the upper onto the Strobel, and we just finished gluing it in. So this is what that finished shoe looks like. Nice and sturdy. This is the real deal. So now that we've glued it, we're going to do the second securing operation, which is to channel stitch it. And now that the whole shoe is glued down, it doesn't really matter where you start to sew. I like to start, here. That way we can sort of get warmed up before we get down to the toe box, where it can get a little challenging. But I'm going to show you some tricks for how to do that. So obviously you need some sturdy thread. This is what comes with the kit. Some thread nippers. I like to have this block of rubber. Sometimes when, if you have a lot of reinforcing or going through a lot of layers, you need to push pretty hard, and having some material to back it up there will stop you from pushing into your finger. This is the sewing awl that comes with your kit, and you're going to need a hook. And this hook is for when you're doing your stitches down inside the toe, right? Because you need to reach down into the toe to get to pick up the bobbin, right? So this one is made out of a piece of coat hanger. This is just a crochet hook. This one I just made out of some 16 gauge wire. So it's kind of like whatever you got. is pretty workable for this stuff. Okay, so let's get started. So you're going to need about 4 times around the shoe of thread, right? And because one time around is going to be your bobbin thread, and then the other 3 are going to be what you use to do your top stitch around the top of the shoe. So let's get started here. So we're going to load the needle. Now I'm going to show you 2 different sewing awls. This one comes with a kit. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty symmetrical. You'll see that actually there's a little bit of a cutout on one side, and that will reduce friction as you go in. Now this metal one here has a groove, and what that groove does is when you have the thread sitting in the groove, that when you go to withdraw the needle, it only makes a loop on one side, the side without the groove, because this one just slides easy, right? So that makes it a lot easier for you to know which side of the loop you got to grab, which I'll show you in a second. So, but this is the all metal one, but we're going to use the one that comes with the kit. This one, it's kind of nice because it has it has 2 different openings, and you'll see one of them is a little larger, easier to get into. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to leave about 1 length around, a little bit more than on the needle. And because what we're going to do very first thing is we're going to pull this thread inside the shoe. So I'm just going to start back here on the inside of the shoe and just put the needle on the groove and just go right in. It's really that easy. Okay, now that we're inside the shoe, we have to think about the direction of which we're traveling, right? So in this case, we're heading towards the toe. So when we pull this back, you see this loop is created, right? And you've got the loop on either side of the needle. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're pretty much always working with the loop that's behind to make your stitch. Now, in this case, we're going to grab that loop, and I'll just grab it with the hook here. And we're going to pull. And we're going to pull all of this string inside, because this is going to become our bobbin. Okay. So that's inside the shoe now. Now, to make our first stitch, we're basically just going to withdraw the needle. And this is where you'll notice, hey, there's no holes on the outsole. How do I know where to go? You could use your invisible marking pen, or you could just eyeball it. I like to use pretty much the width of my finger to make the next stitch. And now we're in. So here's where we're going to make our first stitch. So like I said, you're going to back up the needle. Let's get this out of the way so you can see. Is that okay? Or I'll just push it down for a second. So now I'm going to start backing up the needle about maybe halfway. And now you see the double loop is opened. What we want to do is get our bobbin thread into the loop that is the back loop behind the needle. So I'm going to show you, there's 2 ways to do that, right? You could feed it in, or you can take your bobbin thread and just kind of loop it under and pick it up with a hook. So I'll show you that technique. I got big hands, and this is a small shoe. So, okay. So once you pull that through, now you can withdraw the needle and then pull it tight. Okay. And just that will sink the stitch into the groove. So that's it. That's the first stitch. That was pretty easy. Let's go again. So now think about which way you're traveling, right? We're traveling toward the toe. And I like to just put my finger on the string. Something you can make a little loop here and then put your finger on this thing on the thread here as you insert. Okay. Now we're in. Now we're going to back it up, and we've got the 2 loops again. Now, one thing you can do is if you use your hook. And this will become important when we get down to the toe of the shoe. You can put your hook in, right? And hold the string and pull the needle out. Now you don't actually have to worry about which side of the needle you're on because you just have one loop. And then you can reach through and grab your bobbin thread, okay? Now this becomes important when we get down to the toe of the shoe, because what you're going to end up doing is pulling this loop, this inside loop, really long, out of the toe box so you can get into it, okay? But up here, we're just trying to snug it up and just keep your threads nice and tight there, okay? So we're going to do another stitch here. And now, okay, remember I said about this block, if you're worried about sticking yourself, then just put that block behind and go into it. And that way you don't have to worry about poking yourself, okay? So there we've got our double loop. I'm going to grab my crochet hook. And I'm going to grab the loop inside. You can see that. Grab that. Pull it up. Withdraw the needle. And snug it up. Now, I'm going to show you something that commonly happens. And what it looks like and how to deal with it. So we're going to make a stitch here. We're going to withdraw the needle, and I'm going to put the bobbin thread through the front side of the loop. You see what I did there? Not the back side, the front side. Okay, now I'm going to pull the needle out. And whoops, we have a situation here. We've got this loop where the needle is caught. So, right, and that's because we went through on the front side needle. Now, there's two ways to handle this. You can actually grab both threads and pull out your bobbin thread. You see that loop here? That's the bobbin. So now, actually, now that that's through, we can pull this through. We can unthread our needle. Feed it through the loop. And then back onto the needle. Okay, that's one way to solve that problem, right? Okay, now, this is exactly the way it's supposed to be. Except we have this big long loop, but that's okay because you're just going to start with your bobbin from the inside and pull that loop back down, and then you're going to tighten it up again. All right, so that's one way to fix that. Now I'm going to make the same mistake again, and I'll show you another way to fix that. Okay. I'm going to feed it through. And it's really easy to do that, to get into the wrong loop. And the reason it's easy is because if you've got a lot of material and you're twisting the needle as you insert it, then it'll happen that way. Okay, so we're into that same circumstance, right? Oh, man, now what? Okay. So if it looks like this again, what you're going to do is you're going to grab the middle thread and pull, right? This middle thread you'll see is actually your top thread, okay? So just pull that all the way through, okay? Now, you'll see the bobbin is peeking out there. Just grab that and release it, and now you're back to where you started again, okay? So that's commonly what goes wrong. You just catch that loop. And if you find yourself catching the wrong side of the loop more often, then it's to your advantage to just put your finger into the loop inside, pull the needle all the way out, and therefore you can't get it wrong, and just reach through with your hook or your finger to make that stitch. So again, there's no right or wrong here. It's just however you do it. Now, how long does it take to go around the shoe? maybe an hour, get some music on, get the TV going in the background. You have yourself a cold beverage or a warm beverage. We're moving into the holiday season, so I think it's, even though we live in California, I think it's more starting to be a warm beverage kind of moment here. And just go. So that's it. That's how you do it. What we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get up to the toe box, and then I'm going to show you how we already sort of talked about how to do that, but I'll show you what that looks like in real time. So we'll just accelerate here, and we'll do a few stitches. Okay. Now we are getting down into the toe box, and this is where it starts to get a little bit tricky, right? So you can see the needle down there, and we're gonna just pull a loop, and whatever hook you got, I'm gonna grab this little spoke here, and I'm gonna just grab that loop, and I'm gonna pull. And even the needle sitting in there, don't worry about it. We're just gonna pull, and then we're gonna pull the needle out. Okay. So now I've got a big long loop, and with this big loop, I can just, with my fingers, grab the bobbin thread and feed it through, and then pull to make my stitch. Okay, so that really is the secret when you get down here. So here we're gonna make another stitch. And way down inside the shoe, you can see the loop. Now, if you've got small hands, you can still reach in with your finger and grab it, and then pull the bobbin through the loop, and then tighten it again. Okay. And now in this area, you can see there's some bumps here, and this is where I need to relax and not pull so tight. Because when you get here, if you start pulling tight, we do want to pull the upper material together, but we want to keep nice even pressure to make this smooth. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and push the needle in and grab the loop, and then pull it through, get the needle out, and then be very careful. Just snug it up. Don't pull too tight, because then I want to pull it nice and snug, but just be careful, because we don't want to make it lumpy. Right? So now we're way deep inside, and I can't really, it's hard to see what's going on, but now we're just going to go ahead. This is a 9-hand operation here to hold it up. You can see, hard to see what's inside there. Okay. And we're going to get the hook inside, and we're going to pull a nice long loop, pull the needle out. Okay. We've got a nice long loop. Now we're just going to pull the bobbin through and keep going. Now, again, this is where, you can pull the bobbin thread just not too tight, because we want to keep this line nice and smooth, because that's what your look down on your project. So if it starts to look a little bit lumpy, then just back off a little bit on the pressure here. Okay, don't have to make it too tight. Okay, all right. Yeah, see, I gotta use the hook now. Down in there, grab it out. Okay. Pull the needle. Pull the loop. Reach through the loop. Grab the bobbin thread. And just pull that loop closed, and not too tight. You can give it a little wiggle, but not too much. Okay, well, that's it, folks. I'm going to keep going, and you don't have to listen to me talk about it. We're just going to let it go. And when we get down to the end here, I'll show you how to close it. So let's just go. Okay, you can see what I did here. I did it. I made the mistake. Now I'm going to just keep pulling because I made a huge loop inside, right? I'm going to keep pulling, get that bobbin to come through. I'm going to unthread the needle. Actually, I could probably put the whole thing through there. Okay, get that back. Okay, so we've got a little bit of a, I don't want to say a problem here, but we're 3/4 of the way around here, and it's pretty clear that we don't have enough bobbin thread. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to make a stitch. Okay. All right, and we're going to pull a loop. Okay, and this bobbin thread that we're running out of, we are going to just knot it off. So here, I'll show you what we're going to do here. We're going to pull the top stitch thread into the shoe. So this is actually exactly how you are going to finish the shoe, but in this case we're just doing this because we ran out of thread for the bobbin. But so what we're gonna do is we've got both threads inside the shoe now, right? We're gonna snug up the stitch line here. Okay, now we're gonna just cut them both off, and we're gonna tie a knot. It's just that easy. Pull that in, and pull it tight, because we want that knot to sort of bury itself into the foam fabric on the inside of the shoe. And then we're going to cut that short. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to just start another stitch in that hole. So we're going to get ourselves another length of thread here. And we're just going to start another line. So we're going to do exactly how we did this in the beginning. We're going to leave some thread inside, and that'll be our new bobbin thread. So we're just going to go in that same hole, and I'm going to pull the bobbin thread in. Okay, I think we have enough there. We're going to withdraw. And now we're going to make our next stitch. Okay, so we're right about to the end here. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to split the difference and go in the middle. All right, and we're going to make one final stitch here. Pull the needle out, grab the loop, pull it through. Okay, so now we've got one opening, and that's where we started. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go into that hole. Okay, now what we're going to do is we are going to pull all of the thread into the shoe. Okay, so put that needle aside, and now we've got, again, our bobbin thread and our top thread in there. And what we're going to do is we're just going to give these each a little snug up and cut them down. And then we're going to just knot it up here. And we'll just give it a little, make sure to get that knot tight so the stitches sink in. Well, that's it, folks. We've done our channel stitch. So, we glued it, we sewed on the Strobel board, we glued it, and we got the stitching inside now. Basically, all that's left is to find our footbed pattern. Trace our footbed. Actually, I'm going to look around and see if I have any more of this candy cane fabric, because I do want to cover the footbed. So, well, here, I'll just show. So basically what you're going to want to do is get your fabric, use some either contact cement or some fusible interface, and get your decorating fabric on top of the footbed, cut it out, and you're good to go. All right, folks, that's channel stitching. Again, if it starts to look a little bit lumpy, it's because you're pulled too tight, and I can see that I pulled a little bit tight. But this is a nice sturdy way to make a shoe. You've attached the Strobel board, you've glued it together, and you've channel stitched it. So this is a proper way to make a sneaker. All right, folks.